Creation story. Like other creation myths, Egypt's is complex and offers several versions of how the world unfolded. The ancient Egyptians believed that the basic principles of life, nature, and society were determined by gods at the creation of the world. It all began with the first stirring of the high god in the Fremibal waters. The creation myth is recounted in the sacred hieroglyphic writings found in the pyramids, temples, tombs, and sheets of the papyrus. This writing described how the earth was created out of the chaos by the god Atum. The earth was seen as a sacred landscape, a reflection of the sky world where the gods resided. The creation of the universe took place over a long period of time, when the gods lived on earth and established kingdoms based on principles of justice. When the gods left the earth to reside in the sky world, the pharaohs inherited the right to rule.
Before creation and creation emerges.
The Book of the Dead, dating to the Second Intermediate Period, describes how the world was created by Atum, the god of Heliopolis, the center of the sun god cult in Lower Egypt. In the beginning, the world appeared as an infinite expanse of dark and directionless waters named Nun. Nun was personified as four pairs of male and female deities. Each couple represented one of four principles that characterized Nun: hiddenness or invisibility, infinite water, straying or lack of direction, and darkness or lack of light. Atum created himself out of Nun by an effort of will or by uttering his own name. As the creator of the gods and humans, he was responsible for bringing order to the heavens and the earth. As Lord of the heavens and earth, he wears the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt and carries the Ankh, a symbol of life, and was a scepter, a symbol of royal authority. According to the pyramid text, written on the walls of pyramids, the creator god emerged from the chaotic darkness of Nun as a mythical Bennu bird, similar to a heron or phoenix. He flew to Heliopolis, an ancient city near Cairo, where, at dawn, he alighted on the Benben, an obelisk representing a ray of the sun. After fashioning a nest of aromatic boughs and spices, he was consumed in a fire and miraculously sprang back to life. The capstone placed at the top of an obelisk or a pyramid is associated with a Bennu, called a pyramidion or the Bennu. It is a symbol of rebirth and immortality. At a time the Egyptians called Zep Tepi for the first time, Atum created two offspring. His son, Shu, represented dry air, and his daughter, Tefnut, represented corrosive moist air. The twins symbolize two universal principles of human existence: life and right or justice. The twins separated the sky from the waters. They produced children named Geb, the dry land, and Nut, the sky. When the primeval waters receded, a mound of earth appeared, providing the first solid dry land for the sun god Ra to rest. During the dynastic period, Atum was also known as Ra, meaning the sun at its first rising. Geb and Nut produced four offspring: Seth, the god of disorder, Osiris, the god of order, and their sisters, Nephthys and Isis. This new generation completed the Heliopolitan Ennead, the group of 9 deities that began with Atum, the primeval creator god. In another version of the creation story, the city of Hermopolis in Middle Egypt substituted the Ennead with a group of 8 deities called Ogdoad. It consisted of 4 pairs of gods and goddesses, symbolizing different aspects of the chaos that existed before creation. The goddesses were depicted as snakes, and the gods as frogs. Their names were Nun and Nunet, for water, Amun and Amunet, which is hiddenness, He and Honet, as infinity, and Kek and Koket as darkness.
There is no single ancient Egyptian narration combining all different motifs and expression of the mysteries of creations and origins of present world. We have to summarize the episodes and references of numerous different sources. It is important to be aware that such summary may be an entirely non-Egyptian. In modern analytical response to the question of creation, the Egyptian response seems to have been not to tell stories. This emerged much later in surviving record, but to express relations between different divine forces in groups like constellation. The reign of Ra and its end. The sun god is the first creator and ruler of creation, and references to his rule, more particularly in New Kingdom, tells of the end of his reign. World already seems to exist in the form it now has. There is no separate ancient Egyptian composition describing the creation of mankind. They are already in existence, early in the story of the world. In some accounts said to be from the tears of the sun god. In Egyptian, the RMT, people, evokes the word RMT to weep. The first offshoot of Ra are Shu and Tefnut. They then produced two children of their own, the earth god, Jeb, and the sky goddess, Nut. In the language of natural science, we might say that the principles of dry and moist crystallized into the more solid dryness of the earth, and the expanse of the sky that Egyptians considered watery. A New Kingdom religious composition records rebellion against Ra, prompting him to withdraw to the sky. This tale of the heavenly cow includes the story of Ra sending his eye out from his body, so as a separate offshoot, a daughter to punish mankind. As a Sekhmet, which means the mighty goddess, she almost annihilates mankind. The gods trick her into becoming sweetly drunk by coloring a lake of beer red to look like human blood. She reverts to her sweet character as the loving maternal Hathor.
Good day everyone, my name is Mary Angeline G. Abada and I'm going to discuss about the children of Jib and Nut. Ra withdrew to the sky in this tale. This implied that creation has already reached the point where Gib and Nut, earth and sky, have been separated by Shu. The various scattered references indicate that this separation had to be enforced to prevent the two from producing more divine offspring. However, they managed to win from Thoth, god of knowledge, including the calculation of time. An extra 5 days at the end of the year, and on these extra days, Tefnut gave birth to the gods Osiris and Set, and the goddess Isis and Nephthys. The elder son Osiris is the quintessential good god. He incurs the journey of his Arachnic brother Set, who murder him, dismember him, and take his place as the new king of the world. The sister wife of Osiris is Isis, the great healer. She collects the lambs, revives the body enough to conceive a child, Horus, while the transfigured Osiris withdraw to the underworld to rule the dead. Isis protects Horus from the marshes of the Nile Delta until he is old enough to challenge his uncle. The Battle of Horus and Set are known from numerous sources, the most extended ancient Egyptian source being a composition of a Ramessides papyrus from Thebes, now in the Chester Beatty collection of Dublin. Eventually, the physical combat and the courts of gods Horus proved his case and gained his rightful place as heir of Osiris and king. In some version, Set is given the desert as his area of authority. With the kingship of Horus, the unfurling of creation pursues its current stage of development. There is a Horus king named King on earth, deity son of the sun god. Ra rules the heaven from its daily boat journey around the world, and the day and night skies, and Osiris rules the dead below. There is not a nature religion in the sense that the trees, rivers, or mountains are personified divine beings, but there is a divine force within. The river, the flood, Hapi, and the gods are in one sense in the world, as the sun Ra, the earth Jib, and the sky Nat. Together, the gods from Ra to Horus make up a group that can be calculated as 9 deities. The 9 is the most common means of reference. The larger group of gods in ancient Egyptian writing, ritual perceived the funerary literature referred to a great and a small 9. Egyptologists often use the Greek from Enid. The 9 are not listed by name, but might be Ra, Shu, and Tifnit, Jib and Nut, Osiris and Isis, Nephthys and Horus, omitting the destructive presence of Set. It is not known when these stories were developed. In the early dynastic period, Horus and Set are prominent opposites, but without the presence of Isis or Ra or Osiris. Therefore, our image of Egyptian religion may be an amalgam of episodes that took from during the 3rd millennium BC. It is also not known where the stories developed, though it seems likely that this centralized royal court offered the most intense focus of religion and ritual composition.
Ra, the sun god, source of the light and energy, is the only most prominent and powerful among various aspects of creative power. Pita, creation as intervention in and transformation of existing material, whether metal and stone, or word, the logos of Greek philosophical theology. Kinon, creation as molding of a physical form, as a potter molds ceramic on the well, changing its shape but not its substance. Thought, knowledge, writing, calculation, and the moon, another prominent moon god with a despair of lighting, is Kunz. Bust, originally the power of ointment to heal and make beautiful, in some ways a milder defensive version of the aggressive Sekhmet, until the 1st millennium BC depicted as lion, from the 22nd dynasty as cat. Subic, voracity incarnate in the crocodile. Reninotit, abundance, protector of the harvest, depicted as serpent. Wadjet, protecting the north, depicted as wearing cobra, main goddess at Buto in the delta. Nikbit, protecting the south, depicted as vulture with outstretched wings, main goddess of El-Kab in southern Upper Egypt. Wipwawit, protecting movement by the king. The name means opener of the ways, depicted as a standing jackal.
Nun, the primeval god.
Every mythology tends to start with the primordial origins, and in Egyptian mythology, that scope is covered by the ancient Egyptian gods Nun and Nunet. In essence, the ancient Egyptians perceived Nun as the watery abyss that basically held the universe by which the spear of life was born. This watery mass was endowed with enigmatic characteristics by the Egyptians, with its depth epitomizing both nothingness and infinity, while also serving as the source of all aspects of divine and earthly existence. So in many ways, Nun, like Tiamat, the Mesopotamian primordial goddess of the oceans, was associated, albeit naturally, with the forces of chaos. And in terms of his physical attitude, Nun was often represented as a bearded man with blue or green skin, thus suggesting his connection with the watery mass of Nile and fertility. On occasions, he was also depicted as a frog or a frog-headed man, or even a hermaphrodite with the
Amon Ra and Amon Ra. the ancient Egyptian gods of sun and wind. Ammon, often considered among one of the most important Egyptian gods, the divine deity who represented air and sun. He was also the patron deity of Thebes, the royal capital during the impressive New Kingdom era of Egypt. Ammon was a minor god and the second fiddle to war god like Monton. Ra, on the other hand, was considered as one of the powerful ancient Egyptian gods who was associated with the Pharaoh of the 5th dynasty. He was also associated with the earlier sun god Atum of Heliopolis. Over the time, Ammon and Ra hailed as the Lord of Entities, the creator of truth, father of gods, maker of men, creator of all animals, Lord of all things that are creator of the stuff or life. Ammon-Ra symbolized the combination of the invisible force of wind of the life-giving sun.
Mot, the mother goddess venerated as the queen of gods. Mot is venerated as the mother goddess of Thebes or Waset, pertaining to present-day Luxor. Mot was often regarded as the wife of consort of Ammon during the Middle Kingdom phase of ancient Egypt. Interestingly enough, the deity replaced Amonet, the earlier consort of Ammon, during the aforementioned Agdod system, thereby suggesting the rise of a new triad of Egyptian gods who were worshipped in the temple of Ammon at Epitrices or Luxor. This triad consisted of Ammon, Mot, and their adopted son Khonsu, the moon god. Consequently, when Ammon was merged with Ra as Mun-Ra, Mot was referred to as the Eye of the Ra, an honorific title held by many successive major Egyptian goddesses. The very name Mot was associated with mother, while MWT also referred to vultures. To that end, it is probable that the ancient Egyptian perceived vulture as nurturing creatures, which alludes to their motherly nature. In that regard, Mot as the queen of gods was depicted as a woman with wings wearing the royal headdress, or sometimes vulture headdress.
Khonshu, the youthful god venerated as deity Moon. As mentioned in the earlier entry, Khonshu was regarded as the adopted son of Ammon and Nut, and their triad gained prominence at Thebes, the capital of Egypt during various epochs. Beyond familial ties, he was worshipped as the Egyptian god of the moon, and also time and even healing. Quite intriguingly, while Khonshu was venerated as the amiable scion of Ammon during the New Kingdom era, his origin rather alluded to the darker side of fair during the earlier period. Reverting to his more genial persona as perceived during the New Kingdom, Khonshu was depicted as a young man with a side lock and a curved head, features that hinted at both his youthful and godly nature. As for his association to the moon, the very name Khonshu was possibly derived from the word Khens, which meant the cross. To that end, Khonshu embodied the crescent moon's light, and was further represented as an imposing ball during the full moon. Pertaining to the later aspect, Khonshu, the protector, was possibly also venerated as a deity of love, fertility, menstrual cycles, and life.
Hathor, the cow goddess, venerated as the motherly deity. The ancient Egyptian goddess of joy, feminine love, and motherhood, Hathor, meaning domain of Horus, was closely associated or was the successor to Mehit with it, the primeval divine cow entity goddess who was perceived as being responsible for bringing the floods to the Nile, thus, in the process, fertilizing the land. Continuing with this possibly pre-dynasty concept, Hathor was also regarded as the mother of the sun god Ra. As for her name referring to the domain of Horus, Hathor possibly comes from the Egyptian myth of Horus, one of the prominent Egyptian gods, and how he entered her mouth to rest and then again come back at dawn. Considering this aspect, suffice it to say, Hathor was regarded as a protective and benevolent deity who often personified kindness. He was also closely associated with matters of womanly love and health, so much so that many women beheld her as the counterpart of Osiris in the afterlife. And as for her physical attributes, Hathor was often depicted as a woman with the head of a cow or having an entire cow form. Later on, the bovine features were relegated with the figure of the woman's face, but still with cow's ears or horns. She was also represented with a sistrum rattle-like musical instrument that was used to drive evil from the land, a visit that was later applied to the goddess Isis.